Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. The survival systems in this remake are still borderline insane. You treat wounds individually, set broken bones, and the food you catch rots in real time. Miss a shot because your hands are shaking from hunger, and you'll remember that fight for years. It just hit its first ever 60% discount, down to $27.99, which for a remake this meticulous feels like an error. If you missed the original, playing this blind is one of those I wish I could erase my memory experiences. Warriors Abyss. This isn't just a Musu with a hellish coat of paint. Every run remixes your hero's moveset with pickups that turn a simple charge attack into a screen-clearing eruption of chains and fire. The build variety sneaks up on you. One run, you're a defensive tank, slowly grinding through. The next, you're dashing through enemies so fast the game struggles to spawn them. At $9.99, 60% off, it's cheaper than a pizza and offers way more late-night one-more-run energy. Forever Skies. Post-apocalyptic Earth, but you never touch the ground. You pilot an airship you build from scavenged parts, diving into the dust to grab resources while your oxygen ticks down. The base building isn't just cosmetic. The shape of your ship affects speed, lift, and what you can attach. There's a moment when you first breach a massive storm wall and find something massive floating in the distance that genuinely catches you off guard. 60% off, $11.99, and it's still getting massive updates. Terra Invicta, from the creators of the XCOM Long War mods, so expect to get your teeth kicked in. Earth gets invaded, and you're managing global politics, space stations, and ship design, while factions with completely incompatible ideologies fight over the right to respond. A diplomatic play can shatter your whole space economy in minutes. The learning curve is a cliff, but the stories that come out of it, like losing Jupiter's moons because your counselor got assassinated, are unmatched. 50% off, $19.99, and you'll still be playing next Steam sale. Yuppie Psycho Executive Edition. Your first job at Centricorp involves hunting a witch that stalks the office floors. The horror isn't just monsters, it's the slow realization your employment contract is doing something to your body. The soundtrack makes printer noises threatening. It's a survival puzzle game where hiding in a stall and praying a coworker doesn't find you is genuinely terrifying. At $5.09, 70% off, this is the kind of weird that sticks in your head for months. Fracture Field, a movement shooter where you mess with gravity instead of just aiming better. Create a low gravity zone to float your opponent into the open, then snap your own gravity to a wall to close the distance. The skill ceiling is high enough that a $4.19 price tag that's 40% off feels like paying for a demo and getting the full thing. Matches are quick, and the salt when you reverse someone's own portal against them is beautiful. Shio, precision platformer where you're bouncing between shadow lanterns that disappear if you hesitate. The controls are tight enough that every death feels fair, which is important because you'll die constantly. The atmosphere is lonely in a beautiful way, like wandering inside an ink painting. For $2.39, that 80% discount feels almost insulting. Completing a screen that looked impossible and realizing you held your breath through the whole thing is exactly why people play these games. Dollmare. You're inspecting dolls on an assembly line. At first, then the safety protocols stop working, the dolls start moving when you're not looking, and you're checking corners with a flashlight that flickers at the worst moments. It's short, focused horror that doesn't waste your time, and the sound design does a lot of heavy lifting. Half off at $2.49 makes this an easy pickup for a single evening that'll have you side-eyeing your own collectibles. Shadows of Doubt. Every citizen has a name, a schedule, a fingerprint, and secrets. Murders happen whether you're investigating them or not, and the evidence is scattered in ways that actually make you feel like a detective. Breaking into an apartment to find a receipt, cross-referencing phone calls, matching shoe sizes. The procedural generation can get janky, but when you crack a case purely through your own logic, no game comes close. $9.99, it's 60% off, is a ridiculous price for a simulation this ambitious. Caribbean Legend. Open-world pirate RPG that doesn't hold your hand. You can start a trade empire, get press-ganged into the Navy, or just be a menace with a cutlass. The sea battles take patience, and the interface feels old school in ways that might frustrate, but the freedom to double-cross every faction and disappear into the horizon is pure pirate fantasy. $7.49, 75% off. You're getting an absurd amount of seafaring chaos for pocket change. Hell Pie. You have a cherub tied to a chain that you use to swing around, and he screams constantly. It's a 3D platformer that treats good taste as an obstacle, and the movement combos let you skip entire sections if you're creative. The gross-out humor won't land for everyone, but the controls are surprisingly snappy. 90% off, down to $2.49, which is less than the cost of renting this much chaos anywhere else. The boss fights alone are worth that. Galactic Civilizations IV, Space 4X, where you build custom civilizations down to their governing philosophies, and the AI will actually hold a grudge across centuries if you break a trade deal. The ship designer is a rabbit hole. You'll lose an hour just tweaking beam placement. It's 67% off, $13.19. You're getting a strategy game that can quietly consume your calendar. Just know the tutorial is more of a suggestion than a guide. Animal Shelter 2. You run every part of the rescue, from photographing strays for adoption profiles to scrubbing kennels and managing outbreaks. There's a genuine emotional hook when an animal that's been terrified for days finally trusts you enough to eat from your hand. It's not action-packed, but it's the kind of relaxing loop that makes evenings disappear. $14.99 at 40% off, and if you've got kids watching you play, prepare for intense adoption negotiation. Beholder Conductor. You're a train conductor in a totalitarian state, but your real job is spying on passengers, planting evidence, and deciding who gets thrown off. The moral weight accumulates quietly. A family you split apart in Chapter 2 shows up again later, and the game remembers. It's narrative choice done right. 70% off drops it to $4.19, which is an absolute bargain for a story that makes your stomach tighten every time you check a passenger's luggage. Star Trucker. Hauling cargo through space with a CB radio in a rig that constantly needs maintenance. You'll be managing battery banks, patching hull breaches, and trying to figure out if that distress call is worth the detour. 65% off, $8.74. It's the kind of game that makes you feel like a working-class spacefarer, not a hero. The Operator. You're an FBI radio dispatcher guiding field agents through investigations using just databases and live audio. The interface looks like a real 90s terminal, and when an agent whispers, "They're coming," and you have to triangulate a safe exit using satellite photos before they go silent, the tension is insane. $8.39 at 40% off. It's a short but unforgettable experience, and you'll finally understand why every dispatcher in movies sounds stressed.
Ratopia, a colony sim where your citizens are rats with individual economic needs, and if you tax their cheese too heavily, they'll just stop working. The water physics can drown your entire civilization if you dig carelessly, which creates these wonderful "oh no" moments you rarely get in city builders. $13.20 at 40% off, and watching a flourishing rat economy collapse because you forgot to build a bank is weirdly educational. Rubinite, Souls-inspired action RPG where your companion creature isn't just a pet, it's your parry, your ranged attack, and your healing all rolled into one. Timing its transformations mid-combo against a boss that fills half the screen feels incredible. The art direction is grim and beautiful, and the story is told mostly through atmosphere. At $17.53, 44% off, it's a confident entry in a crowded genre that stands out once the combat clicks. God of Weapons, Bullet Heaven meets inventory management. You're constantly juggling weapon placements in a grid, and the auto attacks change based on adjacent items. Finding a legendary crossbow that combos with your frost sword to freeze entire screens is deeply satisfying. $2.69 at 55% off. It's one of those "I'll try one run" games that suddenly has you realizing the sun came up. Outbreak Island, a survival game where the infected are drawn to sound, so every gunshot is a calculated risk that could doom your base. The investigation mechanic, where you piece together what happened on the island through environmental clues, is surprisingly well written. 40% off, $8.99. The nights get genuinely tense when you hear something scraping against the walls and realize you forgot to fix the barricade. Loco Motive, a comedy adventure on a murder train that plays like a lost LucasArts classic. The puzzles are clever without being moon logic, and the slapstick timing is spot on. You'll be switching between 3 characters, and their intersecting stories create chaos that made me laugh out loud more than once. 40% off, $10.79. If you miss the era of games that knew they were games, this is an easy heart grab. Unrailed 2, back on track. Chaotic co-op where you build a train track through procedurally generated biomes while the train never stops moving. The sequel adds dynamic weather and a milk mechanic that I won't spoil, but it results in some of the funniest shouting matches you'll ever have with a friend. 63% off, $11.98. Even the solo mode with an AI buddy manages to capture that panic beautifully. Heart of the Machine. You're a sentient AI waking up in a corporate-controlled city, and you influence the world through proxies, hacking, and resource manipulation. The writing grapples with transhumanism in ways that feel more thoughtful than most sci-fi games. Some UI elements are still clunky, but the breadth of choice is staggering. 60% off, $11.99. Watching your influence spread invisibly until a faction suddenly collapses under your economic pressure is uniquely satisfying. Ale and Tale Tavern, a cooperative tavern sim where you're cooking, brewing, and serving fantasy creatures, and the chaos when an entire adventuring party orders different drinks at once is peak comedy. The progression from a tiny hovel to a thriving pub with its own farm feels earned. $5.99 at 60% off. Doing this solo is manageable, but dragging a friend in turns it into a frantic where's the fish simulator that you'll remember for months. FUMES, synthwave car combat with a fantastic soundtrack and a grimy 80s direct-to-VHS aesthetic. The cars have distinct personalities, and you're constantly swapping weapons and tuning your ride between sorties. It's not a huge open world, but the tight arenas keep the action focused. 40% off, $8.99. Crank the music, put on some neon filters, and pretend you're in a lost John Carpenter flick.